Ethan Roberts, a 32-year-old software engineer, and Grace Sullivan, a 28-year-old elementary school teacher, had just exchanged vows in a lavish ceremony at the iconic Armel Mission Basilica. The historic church, with its stunning Spanish colonial architecture, provided a romantic backdrop for what guests described as a fairy tale wedding. Little did anyone know that this fairy tale would soon turn into a horror case. As the sun set over the Pacific Ocean, casting a golden glow over the reception at the upscale Carmel Valley Ranch, guests danced and toasted to the newlyweds' happiness. Ethan and Grace, high school sweethearts who had been together for over a decade, seemed blissfully in love. They shared tender looks and stolen kisses throughout the evening, their joy palpable to everyone around them. At around 11:30 p.m., as the party was winding down, Ethan excused himself to use the restroom. It was the last time anyone would see him. When he didn't return after 20 minutes, Grace, concerned, asked her brother to check on him. The restroom was empty, and a quick search of the venue yielded no results. Ethan Roberts had vanished into thin air. Initially, guests and family members assumed it was a prank, or that Ethan had perhaps gone for a walk to clear his head after the excitement of the day. However, as the hours ticked by and there was no sign of the groom, the atmosphere shifted from mild concern to full-blown panic. Grace, still in her white wedding gown, paced anxiously, her mascara streaking down her face as she tried repeatedly to reach Ethan on his cell phone. By 3 a.m., with Ethan still missing, Grace made the difficult decision to contact the Monterey County Sheriff's Office. Deputy Rachel Morales arrived at the scene, her face grim as she took in the bizarre situation. A missing groom on his wedding night was not a common occurrence, and the experienced officer knew immediately that this was no ordinary case. The following days saw an extensive search operation launched across Carmel and the surrounding areas. Search and rescue teams canvassed the nearby beaches and hiking trails. Divers explored the waters off the coast, fearing the worst. Flyers with Ethan's photo and description were plastered across town, and local news stations ran constant updates on the case. As the investigation progressed, Detective John Parker, a seasoned investigator with the Monterey County Sheriff's Office, began to dig deeper into the couple's background. On the surface, Ethan and Grace seemed to have the perfect relationship. They were both well-liked in their community, active in local charities, and by all accounts devoted to each other. However, as Parker would soon discover, beneath this pristine exterior lay a web of secrets and lies that would shock even the most hardened investigator. The first crack in the facade appeared when Parker interviewed Ethan's best friend and best man, Dylan Carter. Dylan, visibly uncomfortable, revealed that Ethan had confided in him just days before the wedding. According to Dylan, Ethan had discovered something disturbing about Grace's past and was considering calling off the wedding. Dylan didn't know the details, only that Ethan had been deeply troubled and conflicted. This revelation cast a new light on the case. Was Ethan's disappearance voluntary? Had he gotten cold feet and run away? Or was there something more sinister at play? Detective Parker knew he needed to look closer at the bride, Grace Sullivan. On the surface, Grace was the picture of a grieving newlywed. She appeared distraught in interviews, pleading for Ethan's safe return. Her pain seemed genuine, eliciting sympathy from the community and the media. However, as the investigation deepened, inconsistencies in her story began to emerge. The breakthrough came when detectives uncovered financial records showing large sums of money being transferred out of Ethan's accounts in the weeks leading up to the wedding. The transactions were authorized using Ethan's credentials, but the timing and amounts were suspicious. When confronted with this information, Grace claimed ignorance, stating that Ethan handled all their finances. As detectives dug further into Grace's background, they made a startling discovery: Grace Sullivan was not who she claimed to be. Fingerprint analysis revealed that she was actually Emily Lawson, a woman who had been reported missing from her home in Portland, Oregon, over a decade ago. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community. How could the beloved elementary school teacher, known for her kindness and dedication to her students, be living under a false identity? The answer, as investigators would soon uncover, lay in a dark and twisted tale of deception that spanned years. Emily Lawson had grown up in a troubled home in Portland. Her father, a prominent businessman, had been emotionally and physically abusive. At the age of 18, Emily had disappeared, leaving behind a note claiming she couldn't take the abuse anymore. The case had gone cold, and Emily Lawson had been presumed dead. But Emily hadn't died. She had reinvented herself as Grace Sullivan, moving to California and carefully constructing a new identity. She had met Ethan Roberts in college and over the years had woven an intricate web of lies to hide her true identity. As the investigation continued, more disturbing details emerged. Forensic analysis of the couple's shared computer revealed that someone had been researching ways to disappear without a trace in the weeks leading up to the wedding. The searches had been deleted, but cyber experts were able to recover the data. Additionally, security camera footage from a gas station just outside of Carmel showed a woman matching Grace's description buying a prepaid cell phone and a large amount of cash the day before the wedding. When confronted with this evidence, Grace broke down, admitting that she had indeed been living under a false identity. However, she vehemently denied any involvement in Ethan's disappearance. Through tears, she explained that she had planned to tell Ethan the truth after the wedding. She claimed that she truly loved him and had been terrified of losing him if he knew about her past. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the case of the vanishing groom continued to baffle investigators. Despite exhaustive searches and countless interviews, no trace of Ethan Roberts was found. The community of Carmel by the Sea, once known for its idyllic charm, now found itself at the center of a national media frenzy. Theories abounded. Some believed that Ethan had discovered Grace's true identity and fled, unable to cope with the betrayal. Others speculated that Grace, fearing exposure, had somehow orchestrated Ethan's disappearance. The most sinister theories suggested that Ethan had been murdered, his body hidden somewhere in the vast wilderness surrounding Carmel. The case took another unexpected turn 6 months after the ill-fated wedding. In Big Sur, about 30 miles south of Carmel, a hiker stumbled upon a weathered backpack hidden in a remote area off the Boronda Trail. Inside the backpack were a man's clothes, a large amount of cash, and a passport belonging to Ethan Roberts. The discovery reignited the investigation. Search teams once again combed the rugged terrain of Big Sur, hoping to find some trace of Ethan. Tracker dogs were brought in, but no human remains were found. The location of the backpack, however, suggested that Ethan had at least made it this far on his own. Forensic analysis of the backpack and its contents provided more questions than answers. While the passport and clothes were definitively Ethan's, there were no fingerprints or DNA evidence that could confirm whether Ethan himself had placed the backpack there. The cash inside totaled over $50,000, leading investigators to believe that Ethan had planned his disappearance. As the investigation continued, detectives uncovered more about Grace's past life as Emily Lawson. They learned that her father, Richard Lawson, had died under suspicious circumstances just months before Emily's disappearance. While officially ruled an accident, there had been whispers of foul play. Could Emily have been involved in her father's death? This revelation added another layer of complexity to the case. If Ethan had discovered not only Grace's true identity but also her possible involvement in her father's death, it could explain his sudden disappearance. Fear for his own safety might have driven him to flee. But the question remained, why hadn't Ethan come forward if he was alive and in hiding? Surely he would have seen the media coverage of his disappearance. His silence was puzzling and troubling. As the one-year anniversary of Ethan's disappearance approached, the case had become one of the most talked about mysteries in recent memory. True crime podcasts dissected every detail, internet sleuths pored over evidence, and the residents of Carmel by the Sea found themselves living in the shadow of an unresolved tragedy. Grace, or Emily as she was now known, remained in Carmel, living under constant scrutiny. She had lost her teaching job when her true identity was revealed, and she found herself ostracized by the community that had once embraced her. She maintained her innocence, insisting that she loved Ethan and had nothing to do with his disappearance. The stress of the ongoing investigation and media attention took its toll on Grace. Once vibrant and outgoing, she became a recluse, rarely leaving her home. Those who caught glimpses of her described a woman who looked much older than her years, haunted by the weight of her secrets and the uncertainty of her future. In a surprising turn of events, 18 months after Ethan's disappearance, Grace reached out to Detective John Parker. She claimed to have remembered something that might be crucial to the investigation. In a lengthy interview, Grace revealed that in the weeks leading up to the wedding, she had noticed Ethan acting strangely. He had been making secretive phone calls and seemed distracted and anxious. Grace's revelation led investigators to review Ethan's phone records from before his disappearance. They discovered a series of calls to a number in Mexico. When traced, The number belonged to a small beachside hotel in Tulum, a popular tourist destination on the Yucatan Peninsula. Detective Parker and his team traveled to Tulum, hoping to finally break the case. At the hotel, they showed Ethan's picture to the staff. To their shock, one of the employees recognized him. The man claimed that someone matching Ethan's description had stayed at the hotel for several months, going by the name Daniel Green. According to the hotel employee, Daniel had arrived alone, paid in cash, and kept to himself. He had left abruptly about 6 months ago, leaving no forwarding address. This new information threw the entire investigation into chaos. If Ethan had indeed fled to Mexico, it suggested that his disappearance was voluntary. But why would he abandon his life, family, and new bride? And where had he gone after leaving Tulum? As news of this development broke, public opinion began to shift. Many who had sympathized with Grace now questioned her case. If Ethan had fled voluntarily, was it because he had discovered her secrets? The case that had once seemed a potential murder mystery now looked more like a tale of betrayal and deception. Back in Carmel, Grace faced renewed scrutiny. She maintained that she had no knowledge of Ethan's plans or whereabouts. Few believed her past deceptions made it difficult for anyone to trust her words. The investigation took another dramatic turn when detectives, following up on the Mexico lead, discovered that a man matching Ethan's description had crossed the border into Belize 3 months after leaving Tulum. From there, the trail went cold once again. As the second anniversary of Ethan's disappearance approached, the case remained unsolved. Ethan Roberts had vanished into thin air, leaving behind a web of lies, unanswered questions, and a community forever changed by the events of that fateful wedding night. The residents of Carmel by the sea found themselves living in a town divided. Some believed Grace was a victim, a woman whose past had caught up with her in the cruelest way possible. Others saw her as a manipulator who had driven her husband to flee. The truth, as is often the case, likely lay somewhere in between. Grace, unable to bear the constant scrutiny and whispers, eventually left Carmel. She moved to a small town in Northern California, attempting once again to start a new life. But the shadow of her past and the mystery of Ethan's disappearance continued to follow her. Ethan's family, particularly his parents William and Helen Roberts, were left in a state of perpetual limbo. They couldn't mourn their son, for there was no proof of his death. Yet they couldn't hope for his return, as years had passed with no word from him. They became advocates for missing persons, channeling their grief into helping other families facing similar uncertainty. The case of the vanishing groom became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even in the most picturesque places, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. It sparked discussions about identity, trust, and the secrets we keep from those closest to us. As years passed, the mystery of Ethan Roberts' disappearance became part of local lore in Carmel by the sea. Tour guides would point out the Carmel Mission Basilica, not just for its historical significance, but as the site of the wedding that led to one of the most baffling disappearances in recent memory. Periodically, new leads would emerge, sparking brief flurries of activity in the cold case. A man in Costa Rica bore a striking resemblance to Ethan. A woman in Australia claimed to have dated someone matching his description. Each lead was thoroughly investigated, but none led to Ethan. 5 years after the disappearance, on what would have been Ethan and Grace's wedding anniversary, a mysterious package arrived at the Monterey County Sheriff's Office. Inside was a USB drive containing a video file. The video showed Ethan looking older and weary, sitting on a beach at sunset. In the video, Ethan finally broke his silence. He explained that he had indeed discovered Grace's true identity before the wedding. Shocked and hurt by the deception, he had planned to confront her after the ceremony. However, as he dug deeper into Emily Lawson's past, he uncovered something even more disturbing. Ethan claimed that he had found evidence suggesting that Grace, as Emily, had been involved in her father's death. Fearing for his own safety, he had made the difficult decision to disappear. He apologized for the pain he had caused his family but insisted that he had no choice. The video ended with Ethan stating that by the time anyone saw this, he would be somewhere they would never find him. He asked that everyone move on with their lives and find peace. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community once again. It provided some closure, confirming that Ethan was alive, at least at the time of the recording. However, it also raised new questions. Where was Ethan now? And was his accusation about Grace's involvement in her father's death true? Investigators reopened the case of Richard Lawson's death, examining it with fresh eyes. They discovered inconsistencies in the original investigation, suggesting that the ruling of accidental death may have been premature. However, without concrete evidence, they couldn't prove any wrongdoing. Grace, confronted with Ethan's accusations, continued to maintain her innocence. She admitted to fleeing an abusive home but vehemently denied any involvement in her father's death. The years of living under a false identity had taken their toll, and she appeared a shell of the vibrant woman she had once been. As the case once again faded from the headlines, the residents of Carmel by the Sea were left to ponder the nature of truth, identity, and the secrets we all carry. The picturesque town, with its quaint cottages and breathtaking views, would forever be associated with a mystery that defied easy answers. The story of Ethan and Grace became a modern-day legend. A tale of love, betrayal, and the lengths people will go to escape their past, it served as a reminder that sometimes the most shocking secrets are those hidden behind the facade of normality. In the end, the case of the vanishing groom left an indelible mark on all those involved. It changed lives, destroyed reputations, and forced a community to confront uncomfortable truths. The beautiful coastline of Carmel by the Sea, once a symbol of tranquility and romance, now held a darker significance for those who knew the case. As years turned into decades, the mystery of Ethan Roberts' disappearance continued to captivate the public imagination. The case became the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and even a Hollywood film. Each new interpretation added layers to the case, blurring the lines between fact and fiction. In Carmel by the Sea, the impact of the case lingered long after the media frenzy had died down. Carmel Mission Basilica, once a popular wedding venue, saw a decline in ceremonies as couples were reluctant to tempt fate. The Carmel Valley Ranch, where the ill-fated reception had taken place, eventually rebranded itself, hoping to shake off the association with the infamous disappearance. 20 years after Ethan vanished, a new development breathed life into the cold case. A marine biologist conducting research off the coast of Belize made a startling discovery. While exploring a remote underwater cave system, the researcher came across a waterproof case wedged in a crevice. Inside the case was a journal, its pages filled with entries dated over several years. The handwriting matched Ethan Roberts. The journal provided a glimpse into Ethan's life on the run. He wrote of his constant fear of being discovered, his regret at leaving his family behind, and his ongoing struggle with the knowledge of Grace's deception. The entries revealed a man torn between his desire for safety and his longing for the life he left behind. Most intriguingly, the final entry, dated just 2 years prior to the journal's discovery, hinted at Ethan's intention to finally confront his past. He wrote of plans to return to the United States and face the consequences of his actions. However, the journal ended abruptly, leaving investigators to wonder what had happened to Ethan after he wrote that final entry. The discovery of the journal reignited public interest in the case. Speculation ran rampant about Ethan's fate. Had he followed through on his plan to return? If so, why hadn't he surfaced? Or had something happened to him before he could make his way back? Meanwhile, Grace, now in her late 40s, had rebuilt a quiet life for herself in a small town in Oregon, ironically not far from where she had grown up as Emily Lawson. She had legally reclaimed her birth name and worked as a freelance writer, keeping to herself and avoiding any media attention. When news of the journal's discovery broke, reporters once again sought out Grace. In a brief statement released through her lawyer, she expressed hope that the journal might lead to answers about Ethan's whereabouts. She reiterated her innocence in both Ethan's disappearance and her father's death, pleading for privacy as the investigation continued. Detective John Parker, now retired, followed the developments with keen interest. The case had defined his career, and even in retirement, he couldn't let it go. With the permission of the current investigators, Parker volunteered his time to assist in analyzing the new evidence. As Parker pored over the journal entries, he noticed something that others had missed. Certain phrases and references in Ethan's writing seemed to be coded messages. Drawing on his years of experience, Parker began to decipher what he believed was a hidden message within the text. After weeks of painstaking work, Parker made a breakthrough. He believed he had uncovered coordinates hidden in the journal entries. The coordinates pointed to a location in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, not far from where Emily Lawson had grown up. A team of investigators was dispatched to the location. After a grueling trek through rough terrain, they came upon a small, abandoned cabin. Inside, they found evidence that someone had been living there until recently. Among the items left behind was a laptop computer. Forensic analysis of the laptop revealed a treasure trove of information. It contained detailed files about Richard Lawson's death, including evidence that suggested it was indeed murder, not an accident as originally ruled. However, the files also exonerated Emily Lawson. Instead, they pointed to a conspiracy involving Richard Lawson's business partners. The laptop also contained a video file similar to the one Ethan had sent years earlier. In this new video, a visibly aged Ethan explained everything. He revealed that after discovering the truth about Richard Lawson's death, he had faked his own disappearance to protect himself and Grace while he gathered evidence. Ethan explained that he had spent years investigating the case, always staying one step ahead of those who might want to silence him. He had left clues in the hope that someone would eventually uncover the truth. The journal and the coded messages were all part of his elaborate plan. In the video, Ethan expressed deep remorse for the pain he had caused his family and Grace. He explained that he had initially fled out of fear and confusion, but as he uncovered more about the conspiracy surrounding Richard Lawson's death, he realized he couldn't come back without putting everyone he loved in danger. The video ended with Ethan stating his intention to turn himself in and present his evidence to the authorities. He hoped that by doing so, he could finally bring closure to the case and allow everyone to move on with their lives. However, Ethan never made it to the authorities. 2 days after the discovery of the cabin, a body was found washed up on a beach near Eureka, California. Dental records confirmed it was Ethan Roberts. The autopsy revealed that Ethan had died from a gunshot wound. The investigation into his death opened up a new chapter in the already complex case. Had Ethan been killed by those involved in the conspiracy he had uncovered, or was there yet another twist to this tale? As news of Ethan's death spread, the community of Carmel by the Sea was once again thrust into the spotlight. The tragic end to Ethan's case brought a somber mood to the town. Many residents who had once judged him harshly for his disappearance now felt a deep sadness for the life he had lived in hiding and the circumstances of his death. Grace, upon learning of Ethan's death, was devastated. In her first public appearance in years, she gave a heartfelt interview expressing her grief and regret. She spoke of the love she and Ethan had shared, the pain of their separation, and her hope that the full truth would finally come to light. The evidence Ethan had gathered led to a series of high-profile arrests and convictions. Several prominent business figures were implicated in Richard Lawson's death and a range of other criminal activities. The case sent shockwaves through the corporate world and led to calls for greater oversight and transparency in business practices. As for Grace, she was finally cleared of any wrongdoing in her father's death. The revelation that she had been a victim rather than a perpetrator led to a shift in public opinion. Many who had vilified her over the years now saw her in a new light as a woman who had suffered greatly due to circumstances beyond her control. In the wake of these revelations, Grace chose to honor Ethan's memory by establishing a foundation in his name. The Ethan Roberts Foundation for Truth and Justice aimed to help individuals who had been wrongly accused or victimized by corporate crime. Through this work, Grace found a measure of peace and purpose. The case of Ethan and Grace became more than just a sensational true crime case. It evolved into a cautionary tale about the dangers of deception, the far-reaching consequences of corporate greed, and the resilience of the human spirit. It sparked important conversations about identity, trust, and the nature of truth in the modern world. In Carmel by the Sea, life gradually returned to normal, but the town would forever be changed by the events that had unfolded there. The case became part of the town's history, a story told to visitors and passed down through generations. As years passed, the once shocking tale of the vanishing groom became a legend, a case that encapsulated the complexities of human nature and the unpredictable twists of fate. It served as a reminder that sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, and that even in the most idyllic settings, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. The beaches of Carmel, with their golden sands and crashing waves, continued to attract visitors from around the world. But for those who knew the case, the picturesque scenery held a deeper meaning. It stood as a testament to the enduring mystery of the human heart and the secrets we all carry within us. In the end, the case of Ethan Roberts and Grace Sullivan remained a poignant reminder of the power of love, the weight of secrets, and the unexpected ways in which our lives can be forever altered by the choices we make. Their case, with all its twists and turns, became a modern-day epic, a tale of love and loss, deception and redemption that would be remembered long after the protagonists were gone. As the sun set over Carmel by the sea, casting long shadows across the beach where Ethan and Grace had once walked hand in hand, the town settled into a peaceful quiet. The mystery that had defined it for so long had finally been laid to rest, but its legacy would live on as a haunting reminder of the thin line between truth and deception and the enduring power of a love that defied all expectations. Thank you for joining us for this thrilling journey into the mysterious case of the vanishing groom. We hope this story has captivated you as much as it has us and has left you contemplating the complexities of human nature and the secrets we all keep.